Hello everyone. Today we're taking a look at a file set that looks good, works well, and best of all, is free. So the file set we're taking a look at today are a set of modular pieces that you can use to represent either a bar or like a countertop in a 28mm miniature setup. This is a fairly comprehensive little set of files, and with the pieces included, you can create a variety of configurations to meet almost any needs you could probably have in your terrain layout. Each section consists of multiple pieces that print separately, generally a base with shelving in the rear, and then a top and face plate that has a nice rustic wood grain pattern in it. So as you can see here, I've got a number of sets of these that I have in various states of assembly and being painted and post-processed. But I wanted to take a few moments and show you some of the ways that you can combine these pieces to create your countertops. Now you have obviously your basic sections, your basic straight countertops that have the nice wood grain fronts. They've got wood grain on the end, they've got wood grain on the tops, and then your shelving areas in the back that you can use for whatever you'd care to. There's actually a third length of this that I don't happen to have one of on hand, but you have a long section, a medium, and a short section. That's about half the length of this medium one. So these are pretty obvious how they would be used. But then you have other sections like this, like these sharp angles that you can use to create 90-degree corners and integrate your straight sections into that, like if you need to create a countered area somewhere in your layout. You also have these slightly less angled pieces to create nice corner transitions for your straight pieces. So with a segment like this, like I can just already picture a bartender or barkeep standing here tending to patrons who are sitting here on the outside of the bar. Very cool pieces, a lot of options. You could also take some of these double angled pieces, and if you had enough of them, you can create like almost a circular kiosk kind of setup if you'd ever have a use for that. And any combinations in between, like say you'd want to have your corner piece, then a straight section of counter. You could obviously have a gap for people to get in and out of, and then maybe integrate something on the far end, you know, if you have a very long layout. Any number of ways you could use these pieces. Very nice set of files. So the next thing I wanted to talk about were some tips I have for assembly. Now, as you can see, I've got another batch of these printed out, and as you can also see, the print quality on these is pretty poor. There's a story to why that is, but I guess the TLDR is I bought some cheap eBay filament and it did not work out. I can't find settings that this filament likes. I can't really do any research on it because it wasn't branded, and I can't even really do a review on it for the same reason. I don't know what kind of filament this was. It was exceptionally cheap, but like they say, sometimes you get what you pay for. So we're going to take some of this 320 grit sandpaper, and for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to assemble this medium-sized section of counter here. And generally, we would just do some pre-sanding on all of the sides to make sure we have nice flat surfaces. We're not going to get too concerned about it here, but sand it on all sides, get nice flat surfaces, sand the faces and all the glue areas so we get nice contact with our super glue. Once we've done that with all our pieces, we would set our sandpaper aside, clean up our dust, and then we're going to take our countertop and roughly align this top to the base. Now we're going to line this to the back edge where our shelving is, and obviously to our sides. And this seems to fit okay. We don't really need to do any additional sanding. So we're going to go ahead and put some super glue on here. And then put this back where we just had it. And we're going to line up this back edge and those two side edges as best we can. And that doesn't look too bad. So we'll hold that for a minute. And generally PLA bonds quite fast with super glue. So we'll just hold that for a moment. We'll look at the ugly side of this print. So we've been holding this for about 60 seconds. That should be plenty. It should be bonded reasonably well. So we'll move on to the face plate. Now this face, it's pretty obvious where this goes. We're just going to repeat the same procedure. We're going to put some super glue on here. You can also put some super glue along this top edge if you'd like to make this bond a little more secure. Now there's no particular way this goes, so you can face it whichever way you'd like. If you do multiples, you can switch it around so the grain isn't the same. But we're basically going to throw that down there, line it up on the edges as best we can, press it against the top so it's flush with the bottom of the base piece, and then again we'll just hold this for 30 to 60 seconds to make sure it bonds. So after we have this piece assembled, what we're going to want to do now is sand these ends to make sure that they're nice, flush surfaces. They're going to align nicely with our other countertop pieces. So we'd sand both of these down until all of those assembled pieces are nice and flush. That way, when we butt these against other pieces, they're going to have a nice tight fit and not leave us any gaps. This also applies to our angled pieces. Actually, it particularly applies to these, because if we don't have nice flat surfaces, we won't get a tight, clean gap between those when we press them together, and it will look kind of funny. So it's worth taking a few moments to sand these down before we prime them. Once you've sanded them down, I tend to prime things with a gray spray paint. As you can see, I've primed this piece gray. And then the next step would be to use some cheap acrylic brown paint to just paint over all of the surfaces. And then, honestly, you could probably be finished there. Just these with a dark brown makes them look quite nice. I think they have a pleasing appearance, being that they're all wood. But if you want to take it to the next step, you can do like I did and just do some really basic dry brushing techniques. I'll put a close-up still shot of this piece, but with about a minute, I would bet it took me less than a minute to dry brush this with 2 layers of lighter brown after I painted that dark brown on there. These look really nice. I do got to say, they look really nice. They have a nice rustic wooden look, and when you start mixing some other miniatures and other painted things in with these are a really nice backdrop to do some of your other modeling on. Love them. So overall, I really love these files. I think it's a very thoughtfully designed set, very functional, prints quite easily, assembles very easily, and it's quite easy to paint with some basic dry brushing techniques. I think there's a variety of applications you could use this in, everything from obviously like medieval taverns and shops and stuff like that to even like a Wild West type setting. Being that this is just a wooden countertop, I think there's a lot of places this would fit in. So check out the Thingiverse page, leave Curufin a comment telling him you appreciate his contribution to the community. I certainly do. I've printed out, I think, 4 sets of these already, so I'm going to be using them quite a bit. And generally, file sets aren't free, but anytime I find ones like these that are incredibly useful and I think will be of value to other people, I will do a review on them, even though it's not something we have to pay for. I think there's some value in that, and I think there's some value in drawing attention to some of the guys like Curufin who are contributing things like this to the community for free. So check it out, show him some love, print out some of these cool files, paint them up, use them in your terrain, and have a great day. Thanks.